the gathering storm. The Galactic Council chamber stretched across 3 kilometers of polished obsidian, its ceiling lost in artificial stars. Today, representatives from 400 species had gathered for a single purpose: to discuss the newest member race. Humans. Ambassador Krelvax of the Zinthari Empire adjusted his crystalline sensory crown, its facets catching the light as he studied the data tablet before him. Humanity had been spacefaring for barely 2 decades, yet they'd already colonized 7 systems. Alarming to say the least. They breed too quickly, hissed Velmora, the serpentine delegate from Cassiopeia's reach. Her scales rippled with anxiety. Their population grows exponentially. They'll consume resources meant for established civilizations. Krelvax rumbled in agreement. The Zinthari had taken 3,000 years to colonize 7 systems. These humans had done it in 15. Perhaps, interjected a melodic voice, we're approaching this incorrectly. All eyes turned to Counselor Thanel of the Luminary Collective, the energy being pulsed with soft blue light as he spoke. I've studied their history extensively. They don't operate like us. Where we see resources to preserve, they see challenges to overcome. Exactly the problem, Velmora snapped. They're reckless. Their ships have no redundancy systems. They travel through jump points we've deemed too unstable for 1,000 years. Krelvax pulled up a holographic display. It showed a battered human vessel called the Tenacity, its hull scarred and patched with at least 7 different types of metal. This ship made contact with us last month. It shouldn't have survived 3 of the jumps it took to reach Zinthari space, yet here it is. The human ambassador, a woman named Lysandra Chin, sat quietly in the section reserved for probationary members. She wore no translator device. She'd learned Galactic Standard in 8 months, a feat that typically took decades. Her dark eyes missed nothing. Ambassador Chin, Krelvax addressed her directly. Your species concerns this council. You expand without regard for established territorial agreements. You take risks that would bankrupt any reasonable species. What do you have to say? Lysandra stood, her movements graceful despite the heavier gravity maintained in this section of the chamber. Honorable counselors, I understand your concerns. My people don't mean to disturb the careful balance you've maintained. Then perhaps, Velmora suggested coldly, humanity should slow down. Accept supervision. Learn from species who've thrived for millennia. A slight smile touched Lysandra's lips. With respect, counselor, humanity has a saying, fortune favors the bold. We didn't reach for the stars by playing it safe. And that, Krelvax said heavily, is precisely what worries us. The debate continued for hours. Some species advocated for strict quotas on human expansion. Others suggested technological limitations. The Merchants Guild proposed economic sanctions. Through it all, Lysandra listened, her expression unreadable. Finally, as the session drew to a close, Thanel spoke again. Perhaps we should give them a challenge. A task that would demonstrate their worthiness for full council membership. Interest rippled through the chamber. This was unprecedented but not unwelcome. The Void Gate, suggested an delegate from the Archon Dominion. Gasps echoed through the hall. The Void Gate was a massive derelict station in the Maelstrom cluster, surrounded by gravitational anomalies and radiation storms. It had been abandoned 3,000 years ago, and its secrets had died with the mysterious builders who'd created it. Dozens of expeditions had tried to reach it. None had succeeded. Krelvax considered this. If humanity failed, it would humble them. If they refused, it would prove they knew their limitations. Either outcome served the Council's purposes. Ambassador Chin, he announced formally. The Galactic Council proposes a trial. Reach the Void Gate, unlock its secrets and return with proof of your success. Do this, and humanity will be granted full voting rights and territorial expansion privileges. Fail, and you must accept Council oversight for the next century. The chamber fell silent. Every delegate knew this was likely a death sentence. Lysandra didn't hesitate. We accept. Later, in the Human Embassy's communications room, Lysandra's second-in-command, Marcus Okonkwo, paced nervously. They set us up, Lysandra. The Void Gate is a graveyard. The Zinthari lost 12 ships trying to reach it. The Luminari lost 15. I know, Lysandra said calmly, composing a message to Earth. Which means no one expects us to succeed. Exactly. Which means, she continued with a slight smile, they won't be watching closely. And that, Marcus, is when humans do their best work. She sent the message, then pulled up the scattered data on the Void Gate. Other species had failed because they'd used conventional approaches. They'd fought against the gravitational anomalies, tried to power through the radiation. But humans had a different philosophy. They didn't overcome nature through brute force alone. They understood it, adapted to it, used it. "Get me Captain Reeves," Lysandra said. "And find me our best unconventional thinkers. We're going to do what we do best." Which is turn their test into our triumph. The challenge had been issued. Humanity's response was already taking shape. And the galaxy was about to learn that sometimes, the newest voice in the room had the most important things to say. The Outsider's Gambit. Captain Helena Reeves stood in the hangar bay of Earth's orbital station, staring at the vessel that would either make history or become another cautionary tale. The Pioneer's Crown wasn't the largest ship in humanity's fleet, but it was the strangest. "You're sure about this design?" asked Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the expedition's chief scientist. She adjusted her glasses nervously, studying the ship's unusual configuration. Helena grinned. "Not even a little bit. But when has that ever stopped us?" The Pioneer's Crown didn't look like any galactic vessel. Where other species built ships like fortresses, thick hulls, redundant systems, overwhelming power, humans had built something that looked almost fragile. Its hull was a lattice of adaptive materials that could flex and reconfigure. Its engines were modular, capable of being jettisoned and replaced mid-flight. Most controversial of all, it had no main reactor. Instead, it had 17 smaller ones, each independent. "The Council's engineers are going to mock this," muttered Dmitry Volkov, the ship's chief engineer. The burly Russian was reviewing power flow diagrams, his frown deepening by the second. "They'll say we're inefficient, wasteful." "Let them," Helena replied. "They've been spacefaring for thousands of years longer than us, and they still can't reach the void gate. Maybe efficiency isn't everything." Marcus Okonkwo arrived with the final crew roster. "We've got 47 personnel, including specialists from 12 different fields." Ambassador Chin insisted on diversity of thinking. "Smart," Helena acknowledged. "The other species failed because they approached the problem the same way every time. We need people who think differently." Among the crew was Dr. Amara Okafor, a xenoarchaeologist who'd made a name deciphering dead languages. She joined specifically because the Void Gate had been built by a vanished civilization. "If we reach it," she'd said, "understanding what's there might be harder than getting there." There was also Lieutenant Gene Park, a pilot whose unorthodox maneuvers had saved 3 colonies during the Kuiper Belt crisis. His flight school instructors had called him reckless. His crews called him a genius. And then there was Rafael Santos, a mathematician who developed a new approach to calculating jump point stability. He was 23 and had never been in space before, but his equations had predicted safe passages through regions other species considered impassable. "Unconventional thinkers," Helena murmured. "That's us all right." The departure ceremony was surprisingly low-key. No grand speeches, no planetary broadcasts. Earth's government had learned that humans performed better without pressure, and the whole galaxy was already watching. As the Pioneer's Crown slipped out of Earth's orbit, Helena addressed her crew over the intercom. "Everyone knows the stakes. The Council wants to see if we're worthy of sitting at their table. They expect us to fail, die trying, or at best, limp back and accept their guidance for the next 100 years. She paused, letting that sink in. "So let's disappoint them. Not by meeting their expectations, but by exceeding them so thoroughly they'll spend the next decade trying to figure out how we did it. Humanity didn't reach the stars by being careful. We got here by being clever, adaptable, and too stubborn to accept the word, impossible." Cheers echoed through the ship. Their first jump took them to the edge of explored space. The Maelstrom cluster loomed ahead, a swirling mass of gravitational chaos that had chewed up dozens of expeditions. The Zinthri approach had been to use brute force. Massive ships with overwhelming power. They'd been torn apart. The Luminari had tried to phase through the distortions using their energy manipulation technology. They'd been scattered across space. Raphael studied the readings, his fingers dancing across holographic displays. The other species treated the Maelstrom like an obstacle. They tried to punch through it or avoid it. But it's not random chaos. There's a pattern. "A pattern?" Yuki leaned over his shoulder. "In that mess, the gravitational anomalies form a kind of rhythm. They pulse. If we time our jumps to match the pulse." He trailed off, making calculations. Helena understood immediately. "We don't fight it. We surf it." "Exactly." It took 2 days to map the pattern, but Raphael's equations held. The Pioneer's Crown's modular engines allowed them to make micro-adjustments that larger ships couldn't. Where the Zinthri had used overwhelming power, humans used precision. They entered the maelstrom. The ship bucked and shuddered, but Helena and Jean worked in perfect synchronization. He'd fire one set of engines, let the gravitational current pull them, then cut power and activate a different set to ride the next wave. It was more sailing than flying. Radiation levels spiking, Dmitri called out. Sections C through F are taking heavy exposure. Jettison the modules, Helena ordered. Watching from the rear sensors, the crew saw 6 of the ship's 17 reactors detach and drift away, their hulls already glowing red from radiation. Any other ship would have been crippled. The Pioneer's Crown simply redistributed power and kept moving. Now I understand the design, Yuki breathed. We're designed to lose pieces. And keep going, Helena confirmed. The Council builds ships to last forever. We build ships to reach the goal whatever it costs. 3 days into the maelstrom they encountered something new. A field of what the sensors called temporal anomalies. Spacetime itself was twisted here, creating pockets where time moved at different speeds. The Luminary expeditions disappeared here, Amara noted, reviewing the historical records. They couldn't compensate for the temporal distortions. Because they tried to maintain cohesion as a single entity, Raphael realized. But if we split up... It was mad. It was brilliant. It was so human. Helena ordered the crew into the most heavily shielded sections. Then they fired a dozen probe drones, each on a slightly different trajectory. Most were destroyed. But 3 made it through, their clocks showing they'd experienced wildly different amounts of time. Using that data, Raphael calculated a path that would keep the main ship in the most stable temporal flow. They'd have to move fast, but there was a way through. Here we go, Jean muttered, his hands steady on the controls. The Pioneer's Crown dove into the temporal maze. Around them, space seemed to fracture. They caught glimpses of their own ship, seconds ahead and behind, creating a dizzying kaleidoscope. Jean navigated by instinct as much as instruments, making split-second decisions that would have taken other pilots minutes to calculate. And then, suddenly, they were through. Dead ahead, surrounded by a clearing of calm space, floated the Void Gate. It was magnificent and terrifying. A ring 3 kilometers across, made of materials that reflected no light and seemed to absorb the stars themselves. Ancient symbols covered its surface, pulsing with a faint inner light. We made it, someone whispered. Step 1 complete, Helena corrected. Now comes the hard part. We have to figure out what it is and how to activate it. As the crew celebrated their impossible success, Helena pulled up long-range communications. She sent a brief message back to Ambassador Chin. Reach the gate. Beginning investigation. The Council's test is about to become our showcase. The reply came hours later, delayed by distance. Knew you could do it. Now show them what humanity really is. Make them remember this moment forever. Helena smiled. Oh, they would. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's greatest strength wasn't technology or military might. It was the stubborn refusal to accept that anything was truly impossible. Secrets of the Ancients. Dr. Amara Okafor floated in zero gravity, her face inches from the Void Gate's surface. The ancient symbols seemed to shift when she looked directly at them, resolving into clarity only in her peripheral vision. It was unnerving and beautiful in equal measure. It's not a language, she murmured into her recorder. At least not one based on sequential information transfer. These symbols, they're multidimensional. Each one contains layers of meaning that only reveal themselves from different angles. Behind her, Rafael Santos was having similar revelations. The mathematics here are insane. These aren't just decorations. They're equations, but not like any I've seen. They're describing something that exists in more dimensions than we can perceive. Yuki Tanaka coordinated the scanning teams from the Pioneer's Crown. Dozens of drones circled the gate, analyzing its composition, energy signature, and structure. The results were confounding. The material shouldn't exist, Yuki reported. It's not made of atoms. At least not ones that follow conventional physics. When we scan it at the quantum level, it's like the gate exists in a state of perpetual possibility, simultaneously solid and not solid. Schrodinger's monument, Gene Park quipped from the pilot's seat. Great. We found something that breaks reality. Captain Helena Reeves studied the incoming data streams, her mind racing. The Council species had tried to understand the gate using their conventional frameworks. The Zinthri had attempted to force it open with massive energy bursts. The Luminari had tried to resonate with it energetically. The Archons had even tried cutting samples from it. All had failed. We're missing something obvious, Helena said. The builders didn't create this as a puzzle to be solved through brute force or ancient knowledge. They created it for someone. But who? Asked Marcus Okonkwo via comm link from the embassy. The civilization that built it disappeared 3 millennia ago. Maybe that's the point, Amara interjected. She'd been translating the symbols for hours, and a pattern was emerging. These aren't instructions. They're tests. Each symbol is asking a question. What kind of questions? Philosophical ones. Ethical dilemmas. Questions about what it means to be sentient, to have purpose, to choose between competing goods. She ran her fingers along a particularly complex symbol. This one is asking, when progress threatens preservation, which do you choose? A chill ran through Helena. The council chose preservation. They've maintained the same civilizations, the same territories, the same careful balance for thousands of years. And we chose progress, Raphael added quietly. We expand, take risks, push boundaries. We're everything they're not. Which means, Yuki realized, the gate isn't testing knowledge. It's testing philosophy, values, approach to existence. The implications settled over the crew like a weight. The Void Gate wasn't just ancient technology. It was a filter, a way for its builders to find species that thought like they did. Try something, Helena ordered. Respond to one of the questions. Not with words, but with action. Amara selected a symbol that translated roughly to, show us you value the unknown over the comfortable. She pondered for a moment, then did something that made the entire scientific team gasp. She deleted 3 weeks of carefully collected data from her personal archives. Information they couldn't replace, observations they'd never be able to duplicate. She erased it without hesitation. The symbol pulsed. Then, slowly, a section of the gate began to glow. A doorway previously invisible started to form. It worked, breathed Dimitri from engineering. But why? Why did deleting data prove anything? Because, Amara explained, I chose the value of discovery over the comfort of possession. I showed I was willing to sacrifice certainty for possibility. That's what the question was asking. More symbols began to illuminate, each posing new questions. The crew worked in teams, responding with actions rather than words. When a symbol asked about collective versus individual good, Jean performed a dangerous maneuver that put him at risk to improve the ship's position for everyone else. When one questioned the balance between efficiency and creativity, Dimitri deliberately chose a less efficient but more innovative solution to a power distribution problem. Each action caused more of the gate to awaken. It's extraordinary, Yuki said. The builders created something that could only be activated by species that valued the right things. Not knowledge, not power, but a particular approach to existence. An approach, Raphael noted, that humans embody almost naturally. We're curious, risk-taking, creative, willing to sacrifice stability for growth. But we're not perfect, Helena cautioned. We also war with each other, destroy our environments, make terrible choices. The builders must have known that. Why would they want to contact a species like us? The answer came when the doorway fully formed. Inside was a chamber containing a holographic archive, the combined knowledge of the gate builder's entire civilization. But more importantly, there was a message. It appeared in the air before them, the words translating directly into each crew member's native language through some technology none of them could fathom. To those who reach this place, the message read, you have proven yourselves worthy not through perfection but through potential. We were like you once, young, imperfect, striving. We chose growth over safety and we touched the stars. But we also learned that civilizations can grow old, cautious, stagnant. They can become so focused on preservation that they forget why they reached for greatness in the first place. The message continued, we built the Void Gate as a gift and a warning. A gift to species who still remember how to dream, who still dare to reach for the impossible. And a warning to those who have forgotten. If you have activated this gate, you are the dreamers. Treasure that. Never let fear make you small. The universe belongs to those brave enough to explore it. Helena felt tears on her cheeks and didn't bother wiping them away. They built this for us. Not humanity specifically, but for any species that refused to be caged by fear. The Council is going to lose their minds, Marcus chuckled from Earth. Let them, Helena replied. She began recording a message to send back. The trial was never about proving we could reach the gate. It was about proving why we deserved to. And we just showed every species in the galaxy what the builders already knew. Which is, asked Jean, that sometimes the newest voice in the room is the most important. Because they remember what it's like to wonder, to dream, to believe that tomorrow can be better than today. As the crew began cataloging the vast archive of knowledge the builders had left behind, Helena couldn't help but smile. The council had meant to test humanity to put them in their place. Instead, they'd given humanity the greatest gift imaginable. Proof that their way of thinking, their refusal to accept limits, their stubborn optimism wasn't a flaw to be corrected. It was exactly what the universe needed. The crown divided. The Galactic Council chamber erupted in chaos the moment Ambassador Lysandra Chen finished her presentation. Holographic displays showed the Pioneer's crown's journey through the maelstrom, the activation of the Void Gate, and most damaging of all, the Builder's message. Impossible. Krelvax roared, his crystalline crown flashing with agitation. The Void Gate has resisted every attempt for 3,000 years. You must have fabricated this. Lysandra remained calm. We transmitted real-time data to 17 independent observers across the galaxy. The verification codes are available for your review. Every moment was documented. Velmora's scales had lost their color, turning a sickly gray. You don't understand what you've done. The Void Gate was meant to remain sealed. Its secrets could destabilize the entire galactic order. Could they? Lysandra asked mildly. Or would they challenge an order built on stagnation? That single word, stagnation, sent ripples of outrage through the chamber. But Councillor Thanel of the Luminari glowed with something that might have been satisfaction. She speaks truth we've avoided for millennia, Thanel said, his voice carrying despite the chaos. When was the last time any of us genuinely innovated? When did we last take a risk? We've spent 3,000 years maintaining what we have, terrified of losing it. Because we're wise, countered Ambassador Kixtal of the Merchants Guild, his 6 arms gesticulating wildly. Humanity has existed in space for mere decades. What do they know of the careful balance required to maintain peace among 400 species? They know, Thanel replied, that balance without growth is not peace, it's paralysis. The vote on humanity's full membership was supposed to be a formality after they completed the trial. Instead, it became the most contentious debate in Council history. Species divided along unexpected lines. The Old Guard, the Zinthri, the Cassiopeian Reach, the Archon Dominion, argued for rejecting humanity's membership despite their success. They succeeded too well, Krelvax argued. They've proven themselves dangerous precisely because they refuse to accept limits. But others, surprisingly, took humanity's side. The Luminari threw their considerable influence behind full membership. So did the fringe colonies, species who'd long felt ignored by the Central Council powers. Even some conservative voices acknowledged that humanity had fulfilled the terms exactly. The issue, declared Ambassador Torvix of the Archon Dominion, is not whether humanity succeeded. It's whether we want them to continue succeeding. Because make no mistake, if we grant them full membership, they will continue to push boundaries, take risks, and challenge our conventions. Is that not precisely what we need? Asked a delegate from a minor species humanity had never even heard of. My people have petitioned this council for colonization rights in the outer reach for 400 years. Always we're told to wait, to be patient. Meanwhile, our population suffers in overcrowded worlds. Humanity would have solved this problem in a decade. The chamber fell silent. It was the first time anyone had publicly acknowledged what many smaller species privately felt, that the council's caution protected the powerful at the expense of the weak. Back on Earth, the population watched the proceedings with a mixture of pride and anxiety. Humanity had accomplished the impossible, but now faced the possibility that success might not be enough. Captain Helena Reeves addressed the crew of the Pioneer's Crown via live broadcast. Whatever the council decides, remember this: we proved something essential. Not to them but to ourselves. We proved that human courage, creativity, and determination can achieve anything. No vote can take that away. The response was overwhelming. Messages flooded in from across human space, then from other species. The fringe colonies sent their support. The Wanderer clans, a nomadic species, declared humans spirit kin. Even some Luminari sent private messages of admiration. But the most surprising message came from Dr. Silvex, a Zinthri xenoanthropologist who'd studied humanity for years. I must confess, his message read, I initially agreed with my government's assessment of humanity as reckless children. But I've come to realize we're not judging you fairly. We're judging you by the standards of species who've forgotten what it's like to be young. You remind us of what we once were before caution became cowardice. Whatever my government decides, know that some of us understand. Some of us remember. As the council's debate stretched into days, then weeks, an interesting phenomenon occurred. The message from the gate builders, now public knowledge, sparked something across the galaxy. Young members of ancient species began questioning their society's risk-averse approaches. The Luminari saw a surge in applications to their exploration core. Fringe species began unauthorized expansions, emulating humanity's bold colonization strategies. The galaxy was waking up. In a private meeting, Krelvax confronted Lysandra directly. "You've destabilized everything. Before you arrived we had order, peace, predictability. Now you've inspired chaos." "With respect, Ambassador," Lysandra replied, "you had the appearance of order. But how many species were quietly suffering under your careful balance? How many dreams were deferred, how much potential wasted? Better that than war. Better stability than chaos. Is it?" Lysandra leaned forward. "The gate builders created a test that could only be passed by species willing to take risks, to value growth over safety. They were more advanced than any current civilization. They chose progress. Are you saying they were wrong?" Krelvax's crown flickered. He had no answer. The final vote was called on the 32nd day of debate. The chamber was packed with representatives from species great and small. The vote would require a 2/3 majority for approval. As the tally began, the tension was suffocating. Species voted one by one, their reasons recorded for posterity. The old powers, Zinthari, Cassiopean Reach, Archon Dominion, voted against as expected. But the Luminari voted in favor. The fringe colonies supported humanity. The Merchants Guild, surprisingly, voted yes, citing potential trade opportunities. Smaller species, usually silent, made their voices heard. The Calvec communes voted yes. The Stellar Nomads voted yes. The Crystalline Collective, who'd never voted on anything in living memory, voted yes. When the final tally came in, humanity had won, but by the narrowest possible margin. Exactly 2/3, not a single vote to spare. The chamber exploded with noise. Supporters cheered. Opponents walked out in protest. Humanity had earned their seat, but they'd also earned powerful enemies. Lysandra stood, her expression carefully neutral despite the emotions churning inside. "The people of Earth thank this council for their faith in us. We will prove worthy of this trust." "See that you do," Krelvax said coldly. "Because now you're bound by council law. You've won your freedom to expand, but you've also accepted responsibility to uphold our principles." Lysandra smiled slightly. "We wouldn't have it any other way." As she left the chamber, Councillor Thanel approached. "You've made enemies today, Ambassador." "I know. But you've also given hope to millions who'd lost it. The builders' message spread faster than you know. Young Zinthari are demanding their government invest in exploration. Fringe species are forming alliances without council approval. You've started something that can't be stopped." "Good," Lysandra said simply. "The universe is too vast for any species to explore alone. The council was right about one thing: we do need cooperation. But we also need courage. Maybe humanity's role is to remind everyone of that." She looked out at the stars visible through the chamber's transparent ceiling. Somewhere out there, the Pioneer's Crown was cataloging the Gate Builder's archive, discovering technologies and philosophies that would change everything. The council had given humanity a crown, but with it came responsibility. The real test wasn't reaching the gate. It was what humanity would do next. And as Lysandra Chin smiled at the stars, she knew exactly what humans would do. They'd reach for the impossible just like always. The weight of the crown. 6 months after humanity's admission to the Galactic Council, Captain Helena Reeves stood before a viewport on the newly constructed Human Council station, watching supply ships come and go. The station, built in record time, served as humanity's diplomatic and military hub. It was impressive, state-of-the-art, and deeply controversial. "Another protest fleet just arrived in the outer system," reported Commander Isabel Torres, Helena's new second-in-command. "Zinthari this time, claiming we're violating territorial agreements." Helena sighed. "We're not in their territory. We're in the neutral buffer zone that's been unclaimed for 2,000 years. They claim they were saving it. For future expansion. Eventually. In another 1,000 years maybe," Helena muttered. This was the new reality. Every human expansion, every colony, every mining operation was scrutinized by species who'd spent millennia avoiding conflict through inaction. On Earth, Ambassador Lysandra Chin faced different challenges. The Council had indeed granted humanity full membership, but with it came expectations. She sat in a conference room with Admiral Richard O. Say, who commanded humanity's defense fleet, and Dr. Amara Okafor, now head of the Xenoarchaeological Institute. The fringe colonies are requesting our help, Lysandra explained. The Calvec communes face a humanitarian crisis. Their primary world is becoming uninhabitable due to stellar drift. They need relocation assistance. Admiral Osei frowned. We're already stretched thin protecting our own colonies. The Zinthri make threatening moves every few weeks. Then this is an opportunity, Amara suggested. Help the Calvec show the galaxy that humanity uses its new status to lift others up. While also demonstrating we're not afraid of Zinthri intimidation, Lysandra added. Admiral, prepare a humanitarian task force. Make it visible. The mission was dubbed Operation Outreach. 5 human vessels, led by the pioneer's Crown herself, entered Calvec space carrying prefabricated habitats, terraforming equipment and food supplies. The Calvec, a species of graceful, 6-limbed beings, greeted them with overwhelming gratitude. Your council ignored our requests for 2 centuries, Calvec Elder Zeshka told Helena. You've been members for 6 months and you're already here. Why? Helena considered her words carefully. Because waiting for the perfect moment means nothing ever happens. Your people need help now, not in a century when the council finally agrees on a proper protocol. The operation was textbook human efficiency. What the council estimated would take 5 years, humanity accomplished in 8 months. They moved 3 million Calvec to a new world, established infrastructure and provided training for maintaining the systems. The galactic response was swift and divided. The Luminari praised humanity's compassion. The fringe colonies began petitioning for human assistance with their own problems. But the old guard was furious. You're creating dependencies, Krelvax accused in a heated council session. These species will look to you instead of the council for aid. Perhaps, Lysandra replied coolly, they look to us because we actually provide aid. When did the council last authorize a humanitarian mission? The question hung in the air. The answer was, 800 years ago. But not everything was triumph. 3 months into the Calvec operation, disaster struck on a new human colony world called New Vancouver. A mining accident released toxic gases that killed 200 colonists and poisoned the atmosphere of an entire continent. The council pounced. This is what happens, Velmora declared, when a species expands too quickly. They lack the experience to avoid catastrophes. This tragedy proves humanity needs oversight. The criticism stung because it was partially true. Human expansion had been aggressive and corners had been cut. The colonists on New Vancouver had ignored survey reports suggesting the mineral deposits were unstable. They'd prioritized speed over safety. Helena attended the memorial service via hologram, her heart heavy. She knew every name, had approved every colonist personally. The faces of their families would haunt her. We failed them, she said to her crew afterward. The council is right. We moved too fast. No, Gene Park said firmly. We failed those 200 people, yes. But we've also saved millions by taking risks. The Calvec would be dying right now if we'd waited for council approval. We can't let one tragedy, however horrible, make us afraid. He's right, Yuki added gently. But we can learn from it. Institute better safety protocols. Mandatory waiting periods. Third-party inspections. Helena nodded slowly. The council species learned caution through millennia of mistakes. Maybe we can learn it faster. The human government responded to New Vancouver by creating the Colonial Safety Administration, with strict protocols that drew heavily on the expertise of other species. They asked the Zinthri to audit their mining operations. They hired Luminari safety consultants. They admitted mistakes and fixed them. The galaxy noticed. Interesting, Councillor Thano remarked to Lysandra in a private meeting. Most young species would have become defensive after such criticism. Humanity acknowledged fault and adapted. Because, Lysandra said, we're reckless, not stupid. There's a difference. The real test came when the stellar nomads, a wandering species, discovered a derelict megastructure in unclaimed space. It was similar to the Void Gate but much larger, a ring that encircled an entire star. The discovery sparked immediate territorial disputes. The Archon Dominion claimed historical rights. The Zinthri insisted it fell within their extended security perimeter. Even smaller species began making claims. The structure, dubbed the Stellar Crown, threatened to ignite the first major galactic conflict in 3,000 years. The council was paralyzed. Every proposed solution favored one faction over another. Meetings stretched into weeks with no progress. Old alliances fractured. New ones formed. The careful balance of power the council had maintained for millennia began to crumble. It was Ambassador Chin who proposed the unthinkable: let humanity mediate. The chamber fell silent. Let the newest member, the most controversial species, arbitrate a dispute that could shatter the council? It was madness. It was also the only option no one had tried. We have no stake in this, Lysandra explained. The stellar crown is nowhere near human space. We have no historical claims, no territorial interests. But more importantly, we have perspective. We see the council as it is, not as you wish it to be. After 3 days of debate, the council agreed, mainly because no other solution existed. Humanity would lead a joint investigation of the stellar crown and propose an equitable resolution. Helena assembled a team that deliberately included members from every disputing faction. The Zinthri sent Dr. Silvex, who'd long admired humanity. The Archons sent a military observer who made his contempt clear. The fringe colonies sent representatives who saw this as their chance for a voice. This is going to be a disaster, Marcus predicted. We're not diplomats. We're explorers. Exactly, Lysandra replied. We're going to approach this the human way. We're going to understand what the stellar crown actually is before we fight over who owns it. The expedition launched with the entire galaxy watching. If humanity succeeded, they'd prove their value to the council. If they failed, war seemed inevitable. Helena looked at her diverse crew, humans, Zinthri, Archons, Luminari, and a dozen other species working together, and felt the weight of the crown humanity had claimed. They'd wanted recognition. They'd earned it. Now they had to prove they deserved it. The journey to the stellar crown had begun. And with it, humanity's greatest challenge yet. Forging unity. The joint expedition fleet approached the stellar crown with appropriate awe. The structure was breathtaking. A perfect ring of unknown material that completely encircled a yellow star, with a diameter of nearly 200 million kilometers. Energy cascaded across its surface in patterns that seemed almost alive. It makes the void gate look like a door handle, Gene Park muttered from his pilot seat aboard the Pioneer's Crown. Dr. Silvex, the Zinthri scientist, studied the readings with his crystalline sensory crown glowing bright. The energy output is staggering. This structure could power 1,000 civilizations. Which is why everyone wants it, noted Commander Dax Thor, the Archon military observer. The imposing warrior had made no secret of his disdain for humanity's leadership role. My people have the military strength to secure it properly. And start a war with everyone who disagrees, Helena replied evenly. Let's figure out what it actually does before we fight over it. The expedition included 7 ships from different species, each with its own agenda. Tensions ran high. The Zinthri crew refused to share data with the Archons. The fringe colony representatives accused the major powers of planning to exclude them. The Luminari tried to mediate but lacked authority. Only the humans seemed focused on the mission itself. Amara Okafor led the xenoarchaeological team, examining the symbols covering the crown's surface. Like the Void Gate, they were multidimensional and philosophical in nature. But these symbols told a story. It's a test, she announced after 3 days of study. Just like the gate. But this one is asking a different question. Which is? Asked Dr. Silvex. How do you share something that cannot be divided? The implications silenced everyone. The crown couldn't be cut apart without destroying it. It couldn't be time-shared without creating conflicts over usage. It existed in unclaimed space that no one species could legitimately claim. And most importantly, its power was so immense that whoever controlled it would dominate the galaxy. The builders had created the ultimate diplomatic challenge. They're testing us, Helena realized. The gate tested individual species' willingness to take risks. The crown tests whether multiple species can cooperate when confronted with something they all want. An impossible test, Dax Thor growled. Species are fundamentally self-interested. Someone will claim it, others will fight, and the strongest will prevail. That's natural law. Is it? Rafael Santos had been studying the crown's energy patterns. Because I'm seeing something interesting in these readings. The structure isn't designed for external power collection. It's generating energy inward toward the star itself. It's not a power source, Yuki gasped. It's a stabilizer. It's keeping that star alive beyond its natural lifespan. Further investigation confirmed it. The star at the crown's center should have gone nova 5,000 years ago. The structure was artificially extending its life, providing light and warmth to a dozen pre-spacefaring civilizations on planets in the system, civilizations that had no idea the crown existed. The builders put this here to protect them, Amara said softly. They couldn't defend themselves, so the crown does it for them. Daxthor's expression shifted from contempt to something resembling respect. The builders sacrificed immense power to save species that couldn't even thank them. The revelation changed everything. Suddenly, claiming the crown meant potentially dooming 12 developing species to extinction. The ethical implications were staggering. A council session was called aboard the flagship. Every faction gathered, the weight of their choice evident on every face. Helena stood to address them, though she had no authority to command. "The crown isn't asking if we're strong enough to take it," she said. "It's asking if we're wise enough to leave it alone. Or better yet, to protect it together." Protect it? Velmora's hologram flickered with confusion. For whom? For the species that need it? For the principle it represents? The builders were more advanced than any of us, and they chose to use their power to shelter the weak. What does it say about us if we choose differently? Krelvax's hologram was notably silent. The Zinthri ambassador had opposed humanity from the start, but now he seemed to be reconsidering. "You're suggesting," Dr. Silvex said slowly, "that we establish the crown as a neutral zone. Protected by all, owned by none." "More than that," Lysandra interjected from Earth. "Make it a precedent. A template for how the galaxy handles similar discoveries. Shared responsibility instead of territorial claims." The debate that followed was intense but different from before. Species weren't jockeying for advantage but genuinely grappling with the ethical question. The fringe colonies pointed out that the old powers had protected their own territories zealously but now asked others to sacrifice claims. The Luminari reminded everyone that true strength was knowing when not to use power. Humanity, surprisingly, said little. They'd made their case and now let others deliberate. 3 days later, Krelvax did something unprecedented. He contacted Helena directly in private. "Ambassador Chin was right about us," he admitted. "The Council has spent so long maintaining balance that we forgot why balance matters. It's not about preserving power structures. It's about protecting those who cannot protect themselves." "So what are you proposing?" Helena asked. "The Zinthri Empire will formally support establishing the crown as neutral territory, protected by a joint fleet from all Council species. We'll contribute ships and resources. And..." He paused, his crown flickering uncertainly. "We'd like humanity to command the protection fleet." Helena was stunned. "Why us?" "Because you came here to understand the crown, not to claim it. Because you've shown that being new to the Council doesn't mean being inferior to it. And because..." His voice softened slightly, "because you remind us of what we should be." The proposal passed with unprecedented unanimity. The stellar crown became the galaxy's first jointly protected asset. A fleet representing 40 species, commanded by humanity, stationed permanently to guard it. More importantly, it established a new principle. When the next ancient structure was discovered, species competed to suggest how to share it rather than fighting to claim it. The crown became a symbol, not of any one species' triumph, but of what the galaxy could accomplish together. But not everyone was pleased. As Helena prepared to take command of the Crown Protection Fleet, she received a disturbing message from Lysandra. "We've detected unusual communications from several fringe systems. Someone's organizing opposition to the new order. They see cooperation as weakness. They're calling themselves the Ascendancy, and they're not happy with humanity's rising influence." Helena felt a chill. They'd achieved so much, unified so many. But in doing so, they'd made enemies among those who preferred the old ways, or who saw opportunity in chaos. "How serious is the threat?" Helena asked. "Unknown. But Captain, the Crown showed us that the Builders' tests aren't over. They left these structures throughout the galaxy, each one challenging us to be better than we are. We passed this test, but I suspect bigger challenges are coming. The legacy eternal." 2 years after the Stellar Crown Accord, the galaxy had transformed in ways no one had predicted. Helena Reeves stood in the command center of Unity Station, the joint Council species facility orbiting the Crown, watching as crews from a dozen civilizations worked in harmony to maintain the protective systems. "Another distress call," reported Lieutenant Kira Osei, the Admiral's daughter who'd followed her father into service. "The Ascendancy hit a supply convoy in the Outer Reach. 3 ships destroyed, cargo stolen." Helena's jaw tightened. The Ascendancy had grown from a fringe movement into a genuine threat. They preached that the old Council way and the new collaborative approach were both wrong, that the galaxy's future belonged to those strong enough to seize it. They'd attacked human colonies, Luminari outposts, and fringe settlements with equal brutality. Their leadership remained mysterious, but their message resonated with those who felt left behind by rapid change. Back on Earth, Ambassador Lysandra Chen faced the council in an emergency session. The Ascendancy's latest attack had killed thousands, and pressure was mounting for a military response. "We must crush them," Daxthor argued, his Archon warrior instincts fully engaged. "Show that violence against the council will not be tolerated." "And prove their point?" Lysandra countered. "They claim the new order is just the old powers with better marketing. A massive military campaign gives them exactly the narrative they want." "Then what do you suggest?" Velmora hissed. "We allow them to kill with impunity? I suggest we remember what we learned from the Builders. They didn't test our military might. They tested our wisdom." The debate raged, but Lysandra had a different plan forming. She contacted Captain Reeves with an unusual request. "Helena, I need you to take the Pioneer's Crown on a mission. Alone." "Where?" "To find the Ascendancy leadership. Not to fight them. To talk to them." The idea was met with horror from the military command and skepticism from the council. Send humanity's most famous captain directly into enemy territory unarmed to negotiate? It was suicide. "It's perfect," Helena said simply. "Very human." The Pioneer's Crown set out with minimal crew, just Helena, Jean, Yuki, Raphael, and Amara. They followed rumors and intercepted transmissions, piecing together the Ascendancy's movements. What they found surprised them. The Ascendancy wasn't a monolithic organization. It was a coalition of species and factions who felt the new order had passed them by. Some were former criminals taking advantage of chaos. But many were legitimate groups with genuine grievances. "They're not villains," Yuki observed. "They're scared. The galaxy changed so fast and they got left behind." The trail led to a hidden station in an asteroid field. The Pioneer's Crown transmitted a simple message: "We come unarmed. We want to listen." They were brought aboard under heavy guard. The Ascendancy's leadership was revealed, a council of sorts representing various disaffected groups. Their leader was a surprise: Ambassador Torvin, a former council member from a minor species who'd been pushed aside during the reforms. Ambassador Chin, Torvin greeted Lysandra via hologram. "Bold of you to walk into our hands." "Bold is what humanity does," Lysandra replied. "But we're not here to fight. We're here because we realize something. We changed the galaxy without asking if everyone wanted it changed." The admission shocked the Ascendancy leadership. They'd expected defiance, justifications, threats. Not acknowledgement of fault. Helena spoke directly to Torvin. "We humans made a lot of noise when we joined the council. We pushed for change, celebrated our victories, and didn't notice who we left behind. That was wrong." "So you admit it," Torvin said bitterly. "The new order is just another system that serves the powerful." "No," Helena said firmly. "It's a system that's still being built. And we built it wrong because we didn't include everyone. We can fix that. If you'll help us." What followed was the strangest negotiation in galactic history. Not a discussion of surrender terms or territorial concessions, but a genuine conversation about grievances, fears, and hopes. The Ascendancy revealed that many of their members had sought legitimate council representation for decades and been ignored. They'd watched humanity achieve in years what they'd been denied for centuries. "We don't want to destroy the new order," Torvin admitted. "We want to be part of it." Over the next week, a framework emerged. The council would establish regional assemblies where smaller species had proportional representation. The Stellar Crown model, joint ownership and shared responsibility, would be applied to other disputed resources. Most importantly, there would be a commission specifically to address grievances from species who felt marginalized. Not everyone in the Ascendancy accepted the terms. Some truly were criminals who used the movement for cover. But the majority, when given a legitimate path forward, took it. The treaty signing took place at Unity Station with the Stellar Crown as backdrop. Torvin and Helena signed for their respective sides, witnessed by representatives from across the galaxy. "This isn't the end of conflict," Torvin said during the ceremony. "Species will always have differences. But maybe we've found a better way to resolve them." Krelvax, watching the ceremony, approached Lysandra privately afterward. "I owe you an apology, Ambassador. When humanity joined the council, I saw only the risks. I didn't see the opportunity." "You saw both," Lysandra corrected gently. "You were right to be cautious. We were young, reckless, dangerous in our own way. But you also gave us a chance. That's all anyone needs." The Zinthri ambassador's crystalline crown glowed warmly. The Builders left their tests throughout the galaxy. The Void Gate tested courage. The Stellar Crown tested cooperation. What do you think they're testing now? Lysandra looked out at the assembled species. Old powers and new voices, former enemies now partners, a galaxy learning to work together. I think they're testing whether we can sustain it, whether we can maintain the will to be better tomorrow than we are today. Months later, Dr. Amara Okafor made a discovery that put everything in perspective. Deep in the archive from the Void Gate, she found a final message from the builders, encrypted in layers that required multiple species mathematical systems to decode. The message was simple: we tested you not to judge but to teach. Every species that finds our works will face the same challenges we did: the courage to explore, the wisdom to share, the humility to include. We failed our final test. We grew old, cautious, isolated. We vanished not from conquest or catastrophe but from irrelevance. We stopped dreaming. Learn from our warning. Never stop reaching. Never stop growing. Never stop believing that tomorrow can be better. This is the true crown of any civilization. Not power, not knowledge, but the eternal refusal to accept that greatness is behind you. Helena read the message aboard the Pioneer's Crown, now permanently assigned to explore humanity's next frontier. Her crew had grown: humans, Zinthari, Luminari, fringe colony species, even former Ascendancy members. They were heading toward reports of another builder structure, this one even more mysterious than the last. They're still testing us, Jean observed. Every structure, every challenge. No, Helena corrected. They're not testing us anymore. They're training us, preparing us for something bigger. Like what? Helena smiled, that familiar expression of human optimism that had so frustrated and inspired the galaxy. I don't know. But I can't wait to find out. Back on Earth, children studied the story of the Void Gate in school. It had become legend, not just humanity's triumph, but a reminder of what any species could achieve. The builder's message was taught across the galaxy in every language to every species. Ambassador Lysandra Chin, now considered one of the most influential figures in galactic history, gave a speech at the 10th anniversary of Humanity's Council membership. The builders left us a crown, she said. Not of gold or crystal but of responsibility. The responsibility to be courageous when others are afraid. To cooperate when division seems easier. To include when exclusion would be simpler. To dream when pragmatism counsels caution. She paused, looking at the assembled representatives from hundreds of worlds. Humanity didn't earn this crown through perfection. We earned it through persistence. Through stumbling, falling, learning and trying again. Through the absolute refusal to accept that the impossible was actually impossible. The builders left their works throughout the galaxy. Some we've found. Most we haven't. Each one will challenge us, test us, force us to be better. And every time we face these challenges together, not as separate species competing, but as a galactic community cooperating, we honor their memory and secure our future. She smiled, that same determined expression Helena wore when facing the unknown. The crown of humanity isn't ours alone. It belongs to every species willing to wear it. And its weight is only heavy if you bear it alone. The galaxy had changed. Humanity had changed it. But humanity had also been changed by the galaxy. They'd arrived as brash newcomers, certain they had all the answers. They'd learned humility, cooperation, and the value of listening to those who'd come before. Yet they'd never lost their essential nature, that uniquely human combination of audacity and optimism that insisted tomorrow could be better than today. The builder's test was never about reaching the gate or claiming the crown. It was about proving that the reaching mattered more than the destination. That the journey of becoming better was itself the achievement. And as Helena Reeves piloted the Pioneer's Crown toward the next mystery, she carried with her the hopes of a galaxy that had learned to dream again. The crown of humanity wasn't a symbol of conquest or superiority. It was a reminder that greatness isn't about being the oldest, strongest, or most advanced. It's about never losing the courage to reach for something better. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy. Not technology or military might, but the simple, profound truth that the story isn't over. That the best chapters are still being written. That tomorrow always offers another chance to be extraordinary. The builders were gone, but their legacy lived on. Not in their structures or their knowledge, but in the civilizations they'd inspired to be more than they thought possible. And of all those civilizations, humanity, young, imperfect, eternally optimistic humanity, had proven the worthiest guardian of that legacy. Not because they were perfect but because they never stopped trying to be better. The crown of humanity was eternal because it was never truly worn. It was always being reached for. Helena looked out at the magnificent ring encircling its star, protecting species that would never know its name. Humanity had claimed its crown by proving they could think beyond themselves. Now they'd have to defend not just their own achievements, but the principle they represented. The weight of the crown grew heavier. But humanity had never shied from a burden before.